For this debate analysis, we are going to discuss what we should expect from Andrew Yang, what issues he will probably have to overcome, and what a victory will look like for him in his very first presidential debate. So, his overall goal should be to prove that he is not a single issue candidate. What do I mean by? So I've seen a lot of interviews from Andrew Yang because I was very interested in what exactly he is, right? As a person, as a businessman, as a potential politician, and every single time that I've listened to his interviews, and this is me personally. Not everybody feels like this, but this is me personally. And I like to think that I have a little bit more experience than Andrew Yang in politics. So this is from a helpful place, not from an insidious one. No matter how many interviews I've watched from him, I always come out thinking he's a single issue candidate. And that's being honest. At this point, even though I feel like Marianne Williamson appears to be more fringe than he does, and I don't want to say fringe, more of an outsider than he is, I come out feeling like she has more issues that she can speak to. Even though Yang has more policies listed on his website, when I speak to him or when I hear him speak, I don't hear him speak about a lot of the issues on his website. Does that make sense? In other words, not everybody does this, but when I'm speaking at an event, especially if it's for a campaign, if it's for a single issue, whatever, oftentimes I don't write my speeches. People don't know that. And the reason why is because these are issues I speak about every single day, whether it be in front of this camera with you all, whether it be in conversation with my friends, other colleagues, acquaintances. These are things that at bars, at clubs, everywhere, because these are issues in my heart. And I'm not saying that he has to be able to publicly speak, like in front of a crowd without being prepared. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that when we see people like Bernie, Tulsi, even Marianne Williamson, Mike Gravel, when they sit down and they speak, Jill Stein did this very well. They speak to all the issues that are weighing on their heart. And that is what has helped craft their policies. So it kind of gives you the feeling that their conviction would be unwavering when it comes to getting these issues achieved. That is why I feel like he's a single issue candidate, not because he doesn't have a bunch of issues listed on his website, but because I sense no conviction to get those issues pushed. Whether that's true or not, that's up to him to change in the debate. So that would be the overall goal for him, in my humble opinion. He also needs to clearly articulate why Social Security recipients, food stamp recipients, and other people who need assistance should give up their benefits for $1,000 a month, because in key primary states, New York, California, Florida, $1,000 ain't gonna cut it if I'm a single mother, 2-3 kids, single father, even if you're a family. When you're talking about $1,000 a month, if I need my Social Security, and usually if you're on Social Security, a lot of the times you need food stamps to get by. Social Security isn't that much, but maybe you're injured, right? And you have kids. Once again, that $1,000 a month is not worth replacing what I'm getting in Social Security. Now, if he supplemented it, that's a whole different discussion. It puts people over the top, booms the economy. Baby boomers would be fine with that. I'm sure they would love him even more. The middle class would love it. But the average family does not really get much of an added benefit by replacing $400 or $500 in food stamps plus whatever other assistance they may get to get, like, what if you're living in affordable housing, which is very popular, like in Miami. So some of our nicest buildings downtown are actually affordable housing. And a lot of people don't know that, which is great. I always supported really nice affordable housing where the building is mixed, because there's not really any way to get out. If you don't have other people around you that have been successful to help you get in that right mind frame, it's hard. So there are a lot of people in these type of buildings who, if their income goes up, they're kicked out of those buildings or they're going to be asked to pay more. So it's automatically sucked out, like the money that they got from UBI sucked out. And so you got to convince them that it's worth it. Now, some people saying he's supplementing it now, and I don't know. I hear different answers to every interview. That's another thing that he's going to have to convey. Conviction. We got to see conviction out of Andrew Yang to figure out what his position is. I don't mind a fluid politician. I don't mind people who evolve, but it's not. I don't get that feeling with Andrew Yang. I feel like depending on who he's in front of, he changes his position, and I hope to see that reconciled in the debate. Is he going to show conviction and then stick to that after the debates when everybody starts looking him up, or is he going to play the game where he kind of flip-flops on the issues like Medicare for All, which we'll discuss? He needs to also set a goal of separating himself as much as humanly possible from neoliberalism. It's important because the progressive movement is about to bail on Andrew Yang completely. A lot of the main influencers in the independent progressive movement see him as too friendly with corporations. He kind of said he put himself in a bad position when he was on the Joe Rogan interview. And he was like, oh, I think all of the Democratic candidates are great. I wouldn't mind having any of them as my running mate. I feel like they're all patriotic. I feel like they all want the best for this country and the people in it, which is false. It's false. If he's done any research on these people, if he's seen how they operated, if he knows what establishment they belong to, you can't say something like that. So people will naturally attach him because of his tech bro pass, because of him seemingly caping for corporations a lot of the time, because of him defending Democrats a lot of the time. No matter what, they see him as a neoliberal in disguise. So this is an opportunity for him to completely separate himself from that. I'm not even saying you have to be the true definition of a progressive, but I am saying you need to be either something else completely and totally, or say you're a neoliberal and chase those votes. But you can't be this in-between thing that you're trying to do because you want everybody to like you. So that should be a goal from him as well. So what good news is there for Yang going into this debate? He's garnered a lot of support from the Midwest because of his UBI and because of how hard disastrous trade deals and automation have hit the Midwest. They have real problems that have come about, and Andrew Yang is offering a plan that is very specific to the needs of people in that area. Like I said, although in key primary states in like New York and in Florida and in California, Washington State, all that's important. He might not win a lot of people there because, like I said, $1,000 don't really go all that far. You don't stretch that far in states like that if you're replacing other benefits. However, in the Midwest, where you have a lot of these open primary states or semi-open primary states where they have a lot of libertarian-leaning people who voted for Trump, people who voted for Trump because of economic distress that they believe that he was going to relieve, but he has not relieved. Yang looks like the golden ticket for a lot of those people in their mind. That's how they feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so because of that, going into the debates, he has an advantage where he can solidify that role, potentially taking votes away from Biden, potentially even taking votes away from Bernie in that area, which Bernie has always thrived in. I don't know how well he'll do in places like New York. I really don't know how well he'll do in Florida because I haven't seen anything about him here. California, he'll do pretty well. But if he manages to 15, 20% here, 15, 20% there in different key states in the Midwest, he could become a real contender. And this debate is a chance for him to solidify that going forward. And at the end of the day, $1,000 goes a lot farther in the Midwest than it does on the coastal states. Libertarians love him. I know. It's weird. Don't get it. I really don't. And it's weird because it's like literally talking about redistribution of wealth. You know, he calls it a freedom dividend, but at the end of the day, it's a redistribution of wealth. But it doesn't matter. And it's by the government. Redistribution of wealth controlled by the government. And it seemingly does not matter. Libertarians still love him. I don't really understand it, nor do I get it. But hey, it's a fact. But that's okay. That's a benefit. But it also speaks to how well he's been able to I don't want to say pander, but to communicate and articulate clearly why UBI, in his mind, is the answer. Now, I will say this. I think that some progressives see that as problematic because even with his type of UBI, which is not the same UBI as what other people discuss, it once again kind of addresses surface level issues. And one of my problems with modern day libertarianism, not the libertarianism of Ron Paul that I don't necessarily agree with, but I agree with more so than modern day libertarianism, is that modern day libertarianism only addresses surface issues. It really doesn't deal with the systemic issues, systemic philosophy. It still bolsters and celebrates capitalism, even though capitalism, as we know it, is a failure. In its current form, it is an utter failure. It's killed more people than anybody else, any other form of economy in the history of the world. These are the facts. So that's a thing that he has to start digging deeper if he wants to kind of pull away from that libertarian label, but still maintain the libertarian votes because he's still good at communicating with them, but bringing some other progressives and even some liberals into the fold and getting on board with his message. Key issues for Yang. We already know. UBI, freedom dividend. That's it. That's the best. That's his key issue. Medicare for all. Now, here's the thing about that. There's a caveat, asterisk. This is where he needs to take a stand. We don't know what the hell Yang wants for Medicare for all. First, he was for Medicare for all public option. Then he was for Medicare for all. Then he was for public option again. He was Medicare for some. And then when he went on the Humanist Report, he was Mike kind of pushed him left in that regard, and did a very good job doing so, I might add. But then his answer seemingly changed. Remember, this goes back to what I was just saying. It seemingly changes depending on who he's in front of. That's not good. So he needs to take a stand. 70% of the country's for Medicare for all, no asterisk, no caveat. That's it. Either you're for that or you're not. Strengthening the ACA is not the answer. And having private healthcare still run the industry, or private insurance companies still run the industry, not even close to the answer. So he has to take a stand, and he needs to do that in front of the millions of people who are going to be watching, and maintain that throughout the rest of this election so that people are no longer questioning. Because a lot of people were okay with Yang. They're like, UBI sounds pretty good. And then he said saying some stuff about corporations, like defending them a little bit. And then people are like, But then he was on Medicare for all. Like I said, on the Humanist Report, he made it very clear that what he was initially speaking about was a public option. And then Mike pushed him left on that. And his website said something different. Now, he's changed a lot of the rhetoric on his website to be exclusive to Medicare for all. So that I want to be, in all fairness to him, I want to be clear about that. So maybe he has evolved in the issue. Maybe he's stopped equivocating, and that's a good thing. I hope he sticks to that in the debate. I hope there's no caveat there. Just either you're for Medicare for all or you're not, and that's the end of the conversation. Automation, obviously a key issue for him, and automation is a real issue that he has to convey clearly. He has to articulate this clearly, because otherwise he's not going to be able to justify himself to millions upon millions of voters who rely on public assistance and who would be okay with UBI if it was maybe state to state, tied to inflation, state to state, tied to cost of living, state to state, and then where they didn't have to sacrifice their benefits, but that's not the case. So you're going to have to make a hell of an argument in places like California, where like LA and a lot of San Francisco, not including Silicon Valley, Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, in that area, key capitals in booming economies like Charlotte, North Carolina, Virginia Beach, New York. These are all service-based economies. Service-based economies are not affected in large by automation. So like I said, people always like to use the McDonald's argument. Oh, what about the machines coming to McDonald's? Once again, I live right by McDonald's that had these ordering machines in them. You know how long that line? I go to the ordering machine a lot of the time. Why? Because the line at the ordering machine is never, and I live in a tourist area. There's nobody there. Why? Because there is some benefits to automation, but at the end of the day, you get paid to do this job. Why would I want to look through the menu, find my order, like, so in cities like Miami, where he would need to get a significant chunk of the votes to be competitive in Florida, like I said, New York City, these are service-based economies. So in order for him to sell this idea of UBI in the form that he presents it, the idea of automation has to be, I don't know how he's going to do it. I honestly don't know how he's going to do it, but if he's been talking about it this often, which it shows it's something that he's passionate about, he's really going to have to connect that to people who are not really worried about automation all that much. And it's just a fact. Service-based economies, oftentimes, like it's people-powered, people-centered, and needs people to run. And so automation, like, it doesn't affect that economy as much as it does like the manufacturing industry, maybe even maintenance, industries and things like that. So, human-centered capitalism. I like the idea of it. And he does on his website a decent job of criticizing capitalism in its current form. I'm not going to have the argument with y'all right now, because I know some of the Democratic socialists and communists and anarchists are going to come on. He won't get rid of capitalism. Listen, that's not the discussion we're having right now. We're not having a philosophical debate about capitalism versus anything else. What I'm saying is, on his website, he does a decent job of criticizing capitalism in its current form and saying that it is not centered enough around humans and is centered too much around corporate profits. Now, he needs to be able to clearly convey the meaning of what is human-centered capitalism. And then he needs to be able to associate that with every single thing that he discusses in those debates. He has to. He needs to have a theme outside of UBI. And I think that human-centered capitalism will make him seem as, like I said, not as much of a single issue candidate. What will Yang have to overcome? Like I said, you got to deal with those discrepancies in Medicare for All, advocacy, and his UBI distribution. He will also have to prove that he is not as politically naive as he seems. Like I said, you can't cheer on these other Democratic candidates. They're not good people. Like, at their heart, they're not good people. They're opportunists. They're careerists. They take corporate money for a reason. They promote the military-industrial complex for a reason. And ignoring this shows that Yang does not have the discernment or the ability to discern who's an ally to progress and who is an ally to the status quo and regression even. So that's something that he will also have to overcome. He needs to draw a line in the sand. He has no grasp of foreign policy whatsoever. At all. And that's me putting it nicely. Got to get that together because he's on the stage with Buttigieg. And Buttigieg has recently come out with a foreign policy speech. Isn't that a coincidence? That's a coincidence that Tulsi starts getting, after the convention, Buttigieg, funny story about that. Buttigieg spoke right after Tulsi, heard her speech, her getting massive cheers, and all of a sudden, a week later, he comes out with a foreign policy speech, and then the news starts talking about that. So, but he's going to be on that stage with Buttigieg, so they're going to try and prop up Buttigieg by focusing on foreign policy since he doesn't talk about anything else. And Andrew Yang is likely going to somehow be tied into that because they're not going to go to Bernie about that. They're not going to expose their other candidates about their lack of foreign policy understanding and knowledge. They're going to go to somebody who they believe is weak on it to draw a stark contrast to Buttigieg. So they're going to go to Yang. He's going to have to do some research because he's either going to end up backing Buttigieg, which will, and Lord, listen, one misstep in foreign policy will destroy your campaign in 2019. Not even exaggerating. A lot of people who some still support Bernie, but they support Tulsi over Bernie. Some don't support Bernie at all because of his foreign policy messages. We can debate later whether it's fair or unfair, but that's just the facts of the matter. Libertarians, they care a lot about foreign policy, more than liberals do a lot of the time. So one misstep in foreign policy. One, we should overthrow Maduro. One, illegitimate Assad critique, saying that we should invade Syria, or one. I mean, Iran. I mean, I think he's against the invasion of Iran. But one wrong demonization, one wrong attempt to manufacture consent, either purposely or inadvertently, could sink his entire campaign. You be, I be damned. So he needs to be better on foreign policy there. He needs to overcome his seemingly pro-corporations rhetoric. He constantly defends them. He says over and over, it's not corporations' fault. It's not corporations' fault. It's not, what about raising tax on corporations? We don't think it's a problem with raising tax on corporations. I think that, like, you can't, Especially because at the bare minimum, all the other candidates, progressive and otherwise, at least know that the people feel like the corporations are the enemy, because a lot of them are at this point. Not necessarily the people, working day to day, working a 9 to 5 in a corporation. They're doing what they have to do to survive. But the entities, the idea of a corporation and what it does economically to this country and the middle class and the lower middle class, and what it does politically to this country, or what they do politically to this country, it's problematic. And if you keep ignoring it, people are going to assume you're nothing more than not a bloodthirsty, but a money-hungry capitalist. And you already have that guilt by association by being part of the tech industry. So I think that's something that he has to overcome and get better at. He also wants to make everybody happy. That's not how politics works. Once again, pick a side. Figure out what you stand for. If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for everything. Just saying. So pick a stance. Figure out who your allies are. Everybody in this race has realized that. Everybody. Okay? They're like, look, I know everybody can't be my ally, but I damn sure know who my enemies are. And that's kind of this, not necessarily, you don't have to call them enemies, you can call them adversaries, but they're not all your friends. It's a fact. He has to figure out if he's a progressive or not. Can't be part-time progressive. He needs to figure out if he's going to be a progressive. A libertarian may be able to win the general election, but it cannot win in this Democratic primary election. So he needs to decide. Either, once again, you're going to be a progressive. You need to be that all the way. Medicare for all, holistically and 100% anti-war. Things like that. You can't UBI or stop defending corporations, comprehensive immigration reform, things like that. You gotta be a little bit more clear on, establish yourself as a progressive, maybe defending Bernie when they try to attack him for socialism, But you can't teeter this whole kind of a libertarian thing, trying to garner votes, because that'll hurt you. It'll hurt you. It won't hurt you in the long run. It won't hurt you in the general, but you got to make it to the general. And you can be a progressive libertarian, but progressive comes first. And that needs to really be hammered down in this debate by Yang. What does a victory look like for Andrew Yang? Well, really quick. Also, last thing, he needs to make it look like he's taking this race seriously. He needs to be more presidential. Like I said, when you get along with everybody, laughing and joking about some of these key issues, it's not really funny. I'm not saying he can't ever be funny, but he comes off, and I like this. Somebody just used this word on Twitter today, I think, and I'm like, I'm still in that. He seems like he's a political hobbyist. Like he's not necessarily taking this seriously. That's an objective critique that I've heard from multiple people. I'm not it's not nefarious. I'm just offering objective critique, something that he can improve upon. Don't take it personal. So what does a victory look like for Andrew Yang? Bump about 2 to 3% would actually put him in about top 5, top 6 in the polling. He's polling at 3%, 4% in some polls. 2 to 3% is massive in a race where Biden and Bernie seem to be dominating. And it would likely mean he's taking support away from Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren. So a lot of people still said they would change their mind. Their mind is up to be changed. Most of them coming from the Biden and Warren camps out of the top 5. So that'd be huge. And it would qualify him for the next debate. Obviously, huge fundraising boost for him would be a huge victory. Make sure he's playing the same game as Marianne Williamson, the same game as even Tulsi Gabbard right now, is survival, step by step. Clearly defining himself a progressive, albeit one with a different outlook and a different strategy to get things accomplished. That would be huge for him, so that people can keep talking about him as a viable choice for the quote-unquote progressive movement. That would be huge for him. Constantly getting donations, But right now, there's a lot of friction between Andrew Yang and his place in the progressive movement, if he even has one. So if he can clearly define himself, say, look, I'm going to die on this hill. Medicare for all, 100%. Social Security needs to be supplemented by UBI, not taken away. That's huge for him. That would be huge. And once again, if people stop looking at him as political hobbyists and start taking him seriously as a presidential candidate, hopefully it could show that he's taking this race seriously. And people could start looking at him saying, okay, man, maybe this guy has something. So we'd love to know what your thoughts are about this. Leave a like and a comment below. Check out the other debate videos that we've done and will be doing. Love to know what your comments are about this Yang gang. I know y'all always complain I don't do enough Yang videos. But I mean, he doesn't really say a lot of different things, and he doesn't really have a lot of hot takes. So with that being said, people, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Thanks for watching that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Roku TV, and on JustNForm.com. Also, you can make sure that you're subscribed to the channel by going to the subscribe button, pressing it, and hitting that notification bell to get all of our notifications. And of course, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon by supporting the show by donating as little as $1. You can click on the link in the description below for that. And remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.